For the Unit 3 interactive assessment, I went to the Individual Differences Research Lab's website and took the two tests that we needed to take, the Big Five personality test and the Dark Triad test. I'm going to start with the Big Five test, where my scores were 63% in both openness and extroversion, 25% in conscientiousness, and 75% in both agreeableness and neuroticism. And considering that agreeableness and neuroticism were my two primary strongest traits, those are the two that I am going to be talking about today. This has me agreeableness being tolerant, mild, kind, forgiving, gentle, and accommodating. They value getting along with others, and as a result, they're fairly flexible in their opinions and are fairly reluctant to judge or criticize. Agreeable people tend to be usually better liked. On the other hand, agreeableness is not always useful in situations that require tough or objective decisions. Neuroticism is the other one. High scores in this are worrisome, anxious, depressive, self-conscious, and vulnerable to stress. Being low in neuroticism may be perceived as desirable, but on the other hand, people with very low neuroticism scores may be a little too carefree and are liable to underestimate potential threats. On the whole, I would agree with this. I was a little surprised that I saw my neuroticism as being that high, but when I actually read what it was talking about, I could see myself as being a little more in line with that, perhaps. I do struggle with stress in some areas of my life and can look around at times and feel a little overwhelmed by my work. I would say I also agree with that I am a pretty agreeable person on the whole. I tend to avoid disagreements and I'm fairly reluctant to criticize other people to their face. On the whole, I would say that this is a pretty good characterization of me, even onto the other scores such as extroversion, which has, someone being very lively, or conscientiousness. My conscientiousness was quite a bit lower, and I will admit, conscientiousness being well organized, hardworking, and disciplined, I struggle in those areas at times. On the whole, I am pretty happy with the scores of that test, and I agree with most of them. I think that agreeableness is an especially important trait to our faith, with Ephesians 4 verse 32 saying, being kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ God forgave you. And I feel like it's really important for us to just extend that kind of level of agreeableness and kindness and compassion to those who are around us. The second test, the Dark Triad test, I scored a 52% on narcissism, 40% on Machiavellianism, and 33% in psychopathy. These results made me 8.83% darker than the average person. I don't really agree with that kind of result very much. I don't see myself as very dark at all. But narcissism, my highest scoring trait, is an egotistical interest, of course, in the self. They tend to be preoccupied with themselves. Machiavellianism is sort of characterized by this need to manipulate people and have sort of a disregard for morality. And psychopathy tend to seek adrenaline through very risky behavior because they're somewhat dulled emotionally to average behaviors. I would say that it was right for me to have lower scores on Machiavellianism and psychopathy because I don't really see myself as either manipulating people for my own personal gain or seeking out particularly high risky behavior. I've always been more of a low risk person. On terms of narcissism, I was not very happy to see my score being 52%. I've never seen myself as a narcissist really, but this was a sort of an interesting look into what I saw. I now know that I have something to work on in terms of my personality, especially with Proverbs 27 verse 2 telling us, let another praise you and not your own mouth, a stranger not your own lips. And I don't want to promote this image of sort of blowing my own horn too much, because this is not who I want to be. On the whole, I was happy to see the result of most of the test, but again, having a higher score on narcissism, was not very happy to see that, and that is definitely something that I need to be working on in the future.